all my life. If I had to start again with all the loved ones in my life, I'd thank my lucky stars to be living here today. 'Cause the flag still stands for freedom, and he can't take that away. And I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the ones who died, who gave that right to me. And I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. From the lakes of Minnesota to the hills of Tennessee, across the plains of Texas, from sea to shining sea, from Detroit down to Houston and New York to LA. Well, there's pride in every American's heart, and it's time we stand and say that I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me. And I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. And I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me. And I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. Thank you, and God bless all of you.
Big box there. No, here it comes. Take it down. Big umbrellas up down there. I need both of those.
My name is Dennis Richardson. I'm the chairman of the Wall Committee, also newly elected senior vice commander of the VFW in Lake City. As you can see right now, we're busy erecting. This is part of the information tent that's going to be part of the Wall program here. All the computers and stuff will be housed in it. And these are all volunteers. A lot of them are Vietnam vets, most of them, and that's what we're doing right now, is putting up the information tent. And when we get that up, we'll be starting on the wall next. To get the wall to come, we applied just about almost 2 years ago to get on their list. Finally got confirmation about a year ago, so we've been in the planning of this thing for almost a year. It's totally sponsored by the VFW. No donations other than what our club putting it all together. In conjunction with our loyalty days this weekend with their first district convention. So not knowing that it was the 25th anniversary of the fall of Vietnam kind of fell at an appropriate time, having the wall here too with all the information on Vietnam in the papers. When the wall is all erected and up, it's going to be about 250 feet in length. So I can't remember the exact dimensions of exact wall in Washington, D.C., but it has all 58,000+ names of the guys killed in Vietnam on the wall. It is laser etched into the aluminum panels. It's painted to look like marble. So they'll be able to do name rubbing as well, just like they do in Washington, D.C. The wall was put together by a group in Washington, D.C. I think it was in '83 or '84. I can't remember it offhand, but it's been traveling around the United States for quite a while, and they hit a lot of towns.
No, don't lift that back there, Brandon. Pull it straight. Pull it straight. There you go.
I'm Howard Horn. I'm the commander of the Lake City VFW, and we've been planning this wall here for 2 years. It's taken us that long to get it all together. We're really happy to have it here as part of our Lake City VFW Loyalty Day celebration for the weekend. The reason that we have Loyalty Days here is because a local boy, Wally Banks, is first district commander for the VFW in the district. There's 9 districts in the state of Minnesota, so that's a big honor for us too to have a district commander here. We're going to have a full weekend. Part of the weekend is going to be having to do with this wall. The wall will be here from Wednesday until Sunday, and on Sunday we're going to have a big parade at 1 o'clock, and the parade will end up here in the park, and we're going to have a ceremony after the parade. Our Grand Marshal for the parade is Cole Black, who was a POW in Vietnam from 1966 to 1973, and he's also going to be our featured speaker.
Fighting soldiers from the sky, fearless men who jump and die, men who mean just what they say, the brave men of the Green Beret. Silver wings up on their chest, these are men, America's best. 100 men will test today, but only 3 when the Green Beret. Trained to live off nature's land, trained in combat hand to hand, men who fight by night and day, courage take from the Green Beret. Silver wings up on their chest, these are men, America's best. 100 men will test today, but only 3 when the Green Beret. Back at home, a young wife waits. Her Green Beret has met his fate. He has died for those oppressed, leaving her this last request. Put silver wings on my son's chest. Make him one of America's best. He'll be a man they'll test one day. Have him win the Green Beret.
Cox, Richard? I don't see him on here, do you? No. Look up this
Look at Jacob, it's a magic neon clipboard. You look at my eyes.
You want me to be happy? We don't know, maybe. You want to see me angry? One match. Yep, it should be. Would you like that printed out?
Yeah, if I could.
I'm moved by the wall because the people that have suffered all their losses of their family and friends must feel really bad. It's a good honor for the people who have died.
This wall moved me because I know that all the people that died for the war were losing their lives for us, and so was my grandma.
And I think the wall was cool because I liked how the people stood up for us.
And I think the wall is a cool thing to see because it shows the names of people who fought for us and lost their lives.
In school, we studied a lot about the wall, and before we did that, I didn't really know much about the wall. But it's really amazing. A lot of people gave up their lives just so we could live free.
And yesterday, we went to the computer lab and tried to find information about the Vietnam War. And we found out that this lady, that her son was in the Vietnam War. She said that he was gonna be all right, but she found out that they couldn't find him, and she doesn't know if he's still alive or if he's dead. Kind of makes you feel sad about the people that died, and we looked on the internet all these pictures about on the wall, and it just makes you kind of have a weird feeling when you see all these people's name on the wall that are dead.
And I think that the fact that all these people, well, most of them died for us is really interesting and kind of scary. And that some of them were forced to be in the war is kind of interesting, but it's kind of rude that they had to do that. I just think it's really nice that they did that for us.
Hi, my name is Tracy Oliver and I teach 6th grade. Before my students came today, we went into the computer lab and we looked at what we should be seeing on the wall, what to expect, what it was looked like, who built it, why it was built. We also did some things with reading some poems and letters from parents that had lost children in the Vietnam War. And I think by actually coming today, it really helps them to see the quantity and to realize that the people whose names are on this wall, actually, they left behind families. They had brothers, sisters, parents, children that they lost. I think that's a pretty powerful message for a student that age to receive. See, there's another one.
But it
That would be protesting it. Or is it?
It wasn't
Burning flags.
regular or something.
Well, the sirens mark the beginning of the Loyalty Day Parade here in Lake City. It's a cloudy day. It looks like a threat of rain, but hopefully it'll hold up and the parade will come off. That's the Lake City Police Department in the lead, followed by the Lake City Ambulance and Lake City Fire Department testing their sirens out. Looks like an older member of the Lake City Fire Department there. This looks like the 173rd Color Guard with Army, USMC, USN, and USAF. All the forces of the United States represented. And looks like a Humvee there. I wonder if that's Wally Banks in there. No, it's not. Wally Banks is a Lake City VFW commander who's now the 1st District Commander, and that's why the Loyalty Days Parade is here in Lake City. It moves to whoever has the 1st District Commander post, and Lake City has the rights to it this year, and they made the VFW traveling wall, or the Vietnam War Memorial traveling wall exhibit part of their Loyalty Days exhibit. And the folks are standing here in recognition of the flag. And they dropped off a couple of judges. Looks like they'll be judging here at this judges stand. Oh, I wish I had my glasses. There's another drop off. Those guys get the rides. Another Humvee from the Army. Look at the size of that thing. We got Colonel Donald Anderson for the U.S. Air Force Reserve. Let's see if he's going to join his fellow commanders here at the judges station. Colonel Jarius Wilkowski, Major David Doyley, not sure if I can read him well, Captain William Wayne, sorry. Here's the color guard, 173rd color guard. It's a breezy day here for the parade. Folks are standing in recognition of the flags and the color guard. And there's our 1st District Commander, Wally Banks. Wally's the reason the Loyalty Days Parade is being held here today in Lake City. We'll hear him speak a little later. Wally gets that crowd going. A little hometown appreciation. This looks like the Owatonna Auxiliary Color Guard. The Ladies Auxiliary, District 1. This is Trudy Pierce, 1st District Auxiliary. President? Looks like the Preston Color Guard. Gonna keep folks standing a lot here with all the flags we'll be seeing at the Loyalty Days Parade today. Sponsored in part by VFW Post 8729 of Lake City. Keith Johnson, 1st District, Senior Vice Commander. The parade goes right in front of Fire Hall here and then makes a sharp turn in front of Patton Park and then ends down the block from that. Started up at the high school, and these parade veterans are just about to finish here, coming up for their last block. We can hear our first band coming up real quick. This looks like the Cannon Falls Auxiliary Color Guard. Sounds like the Tiger Band in the background. Bonnie Owens. She's the 1st District VFW Auxiliary Vice President. In a beautiful Ford Galaxy. Here's our Grand Marshal of our parade. Cole Black is his name, and Cole will be speaking after the parade. Cole was a POW in Vietnam. Quickly behind Cole is Esther Prigg and Oris Durland. From the Lake City VFW. And from the Legion is Russell Brewer, Legion Commander. Here comes the Cannon Falls VFW Color Guard. Followed quickly by, looks like Bernie Melter. Bernie is the Minnesota State Commissioner of Veterans Affairs. And here's the Tiger Band from Lake City. A hot day for the parade, but the Lake City Tiger Band looking good. Followed behind them is the senior veterans of Lake City, Post 8729, the VFW. Nice looking float there. The Chatfield color guard now coming up. I think they're right with the Spring Valley color guard. That's Steve O'Connor. His Ford's giving him a little trouble. It's dying. Connie Ream. Hang on, Steve. That Ford's gone crazy. This is the Austin color guard. The mayor of Lake City, Willard Bremer. He's got a nice car. Following the mayor is the Emmons American Legion. Mayors always get the best horn, don't they? This is the 1st District American Legion color guard. This is the Loyalty Day Queens float. See the Red Wing shoe logo there. The Queen and Princesses for the 1st District American Legion. Loyalty Days, 1st District Loyalty Days, Queen and Princesses. This is the Northfield VFW Commander and Auxiliary President. This is the Millville Valley Legion color guard. Bob Davis. We think he's from, he looks like a Shriner there. He's got that Shriner hat. I believe this is the Disabled Veterans float. Chapter number 5 in Red Wing. Dean Means, VFW Deputy Commander. Al Holen from the Wabasha County. Jim Knoll coming up. Another color guard coming through, keeping folks standing. Not sure if that's Rochester or... This is the Oriental Band, the Zura Temple Oriental Band. It could have been Stewartville ahead of them. Some exotic music coming your way. Get a load of those shoes. Wonder if that's the Stewartville VFW color guard following the Oriental Band. This is What's Old Glory float from the Owatonna VFW. Well, the Girl Scouts, actually. Show Your Colors, America. Pheasants for Vets from VFW Post 13723 and the Ladies Auxiliary. And the Jeep trailer from Owatonna. Here comes the Dragon and the Dragon Patrol leading the way. This is the Rochester Osmond Dragon Patrol. Oh, they're trying to get that dragon to move. She's not responding. Wonder if somebody collects all the dragon droppings. Scoop them up, boys. They're trying to move that dragon. She's being reluctant. Ooh, the dragon got him there. Blasting out. This is the dragon from the Rochester Osmond Dragon Patrol. Got a blast there in the face. Osmond Shrine Dragon Patrol. I think they're out of Rochester. Delighting the Loyalty Days Parade, folks. So the Wabasha American Legion, it looks like. I think they're marching with also the Wabasha VFW and Auxiliary. Some Wabasha dignitaries. And this is the Lake City Water Ski Float, the birthplace of water skiing, with, looks like, the Miss Lake City royalty. Kathy McCormick from American Legion in Lake City, the auxiliary. Heidi Cheney, Voice of Democracy in Lake City. Okay, another Miss Lake City. Princesses and Queen from 1999. The Girl Scouts Junior Girl unit in a couple of big trucks giving some candies. Okay, here comes the Campfire Girls and boys, highlighting all their activities in Lake City. And a big crowd coming up. Looks like Boy Scouts and Cub Scouts, Girl Scouts, the bunches of them. Enjoying the Loyalty Day Parade here, sponsored by the Lake City VFW Post 8729 and the 1st District Commander, Wally Banks. Looks like the American Legion Commander from Plainview. Looks like we're going to get One more flag and one more band to wrap up the Loyalty Days Parade. This is from Waseca, the Waseca VFW and Auxiliary, followed by the Waseca Marching Band. Hope you enjoyed this Loyalty Days Parade.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to welcome all of you to the closing ceremonies to the Wall That Heals and the Loyalty Day Convention. My name is Steve Hinckley. I'm the postmaster here in Lake City. but more importantly, I am a lifetime member of the VFW post here in Lake City 8729. We ask that you all refrain from smoking today in the park since it has been dedicated as a memorial the last few days. The weather, well, for 3 or 4 days, we have been worrying about this weather. They've been saying rain and keep pushing it back. And Pastor Dan, who is with us today, guaranteed me last night that we would have no rain today. And I told him last night, if it rains, Pastor Dan, don't even bother showing up. But he is with us, and I think the skies are going to play along with us here for the next hour. As you can see, I am surrounded by many dignitaries on this stage. I haven't been around this many military personnel in quite a long time, and I was scared then, and I'm very scared now. To start this program out, I'd like to have Pastor Dan come up for the invocation.
Thank you. I'm honored as a Vietnam veteran to be here today as we remember, as we give honor to all who gave the supreme sacrifice, as we come to heal. Many of us know well that our names could have been on this wall. Many of us know well that our names were nearly on this wall. Many of us know those who have their names inscribed on this wall, and we come for healing. I am also honored to be here today as a pastor, as a minister of the gospel. Jesus identified his ministry with these words from Isaiah. The Spirit of the Sovereign Lord is on me, because the Lord has anointed me to preach good news to the poor. He has sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim freedom for the captives and release from darkness for the prisoners, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor. We bow our heads in prayer. Heavenly Father, as our eyes fall upon these names, we pray that you, as the great healer, would bind up the brokenhearted and bring the freeing power of your favor and tender mercies upon us this day as we remember, as we reflect, as we give thanks, and as we look to you for healing. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you, Pastor Dan. With us today, we have the privilege, our honored guests who are seated in front of the fountain over here. I'd like to introduce the Michael Glenn family. Michael Glenn resided here in Lake City. He graduated from Lincoln High School in 1965. He took part in many sporting events. He joined the Marine Corps in 1966. He was killed in Vietnam, February 28, 1967. And we are honored to have them here. Would you folks please stand? And now I'd like to introduce some of the people here behind me. If you'd hold your applause, because we have so many of them, and I'm trying to stay ahead of this rain, if you could hold your applause until I introduce them all, and then we'll give them a nice warm welcome. First off, I'd like to introduce Jim Knoll, retired Colonel, U.S. Army Reserve. And if you gentlemen could, thank you. Next, Wally Banks, 1st District Commander. Trudy Pierce, 1st District Auxiliary President. Howard Horn, Lake City Post 8729 Commander. Esther Prigge, Post 8729 Auxiliary President. Willard Bramer, Lake City's mayor. Dennis Richardson, Senior Vice Commander and Chairman of the Wall That Heals. Colonel Dennis Lord, Army National Guard. Brigadier General Harry Sieben, Air National Guard. Steve O'Connor, State Judge Advocate. Connie Ream, Department of Minnesota, Junior Vice President. Bob Davis, Goodhue County Veteran Service Officer. Major Boyle, U.S. Marines. Colonel James Witowski, U.S. Marine Corps. Lieutenant Colonel Lou DeVecchio, U.S. Marine Corps. And Captain Fry, United States Navy. May we now have a nice round of applause for all these people. There's a few up here that said, well, you forgot somebody, but I'm saving a few of them here because I'm going to go into a little more detail on them. Okay, I'm going to bring up our first speaker, but before I do that, I'd like to tell you a little bit about him. He served in the Marine Corps from 1955 to 1976, and he retired as a gunnery sergeant. In 1977 through 1980, he served as the Assistant County Veteran Service Officer for Dakota County. 1980 to 1990, he was the County Service Officer for Goodhue County. From 1990 to this present day, he is the Commissioner of Veteran Affairs for the state of Minnesota. Would you please welcome our good friend, Bernie Melter.
Good afternoon. It is a pleasure for me to be here, and I want to thank Lake City for the tremendous job they've done this year for this district convention and this Loyalty Day. Bringing the wall, the traveling wall, the wall that heals to us here in the middle of the country. For us to remember those 58,000 plus brave individuals whose names are on there. And if you can sit and recall that every name inscribed on that wall, from that end to this end, there's a family in pain somewhere. To help those families, we appreciate what the city of Lake City has done. We have many other speakers here today. I sit on this dais, if you will, with some genuine heroes, some folks that have given a lot for their country and are still serving all of the people up here. To Wally Banks and Trudy Pierce, thank you for a great year in the 1st District. We look forward to another year. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bernie. Well, that brings us to our second speaker and another one of our honored guests and the Grand Marshal of our parade this afternoon. But I have to tell you a little bit about him also. He's a product of Lake City. He was born and raised here and grew up here in a little suburb of Lake City about 5 miles towards Rochester, Oak Center. I like to call it a suburb. He graduated from Lincoln High School in 1950. Was very involved in athletics there. Short time after he graduated from Lincoln, he enlisted in the United States Navy. During his first 5 years, he spent as an electronics technician, but he wanted to get a little more out of the Navy. So he earned his pilot's wings in 1957. In 1964, he earned his Bachelor of Science degree. And as most of you know, in 1964, the Vietnam War was just starting to get pretty well heated up. He served 2 tours in Vietnam as a fighter pilot. During his second tour, 7 days before he was to come home, he was shot down in Vietnam. He was captured almost immediately. From that day on, his life made a dramatic turn. He spent the next 6.5 years approximately in a place called the Hanoi Hilton. And it's not the Hilton that you people are used to. He was shot down June 21st, 1966, and was released February 12th of 1973, approximately 6 years and 9 months. In 1986, Cole Black retired from the United States Navy at the rank of captain. Cole and his wife, Karen, presently reside in California in the suburbs of San Diego. I'd like you to please welcome a good friend and our honored guest, Cole Black.
Thank you, Steve. Steve sure fixed me up with a good seat for this show. Distinguished visitors, veterans, friends, and all those patriotic people here in Lake City that came for the show today. I think Patton Park looks about as great as I've ever seen it. The veterans here in town, the post, have sure done a good job. I look back on things, and it was about 50 years ago today that my classmates and I at Lincoln High were putting on our caps and gowns and getting ready for graduation. Like all 17 and 18-year-old people, we thought we knew everything there was to know, and we were ready to take on the world. In my case, I had talked to the Navy recruiter, and he really sold me on a career in the Navy. He said they could get me educated, and I'd see the world. Actually, I did see a lot of the world. I'm not sure how well they got me educated, but I did see a lot of the world. That fall, I had embarked upon a tour in the United States Navy that was to span just about 37 years. And as Howard said, in 1986, I retired. My wife, Karen, and I settled down, built a home, set up housekeeping, and done all those things you're supposed to do at least once in your life in Southern California. I still enjoy returning to Lake City, though, and it's a pleasure to be here today. I'd like to commend Howard Horn, our post commander here, and all the members of Post 8729 for the engineering of this red, white, and blue patriotism that is certainly evident today. It took a lot of work and expended an awful lot to make Loyalty Days 2000 a huge success. Although my address is still in California, I owe and feel quite a bit of feeling for the home here in Lake City. It's always a pleasure to renew old friendships and to establish new ones. As we concluded the parade here in Patton Park, and here we are, I think of a few of my old memories of this place. I guess I recall most this park as the place where Santa Claus used to come visit us kids on Christmas time. He used to come and give candy to us, and sometimes it was a bit chilly, but the candy seemed to make it all worthwhile. Howard and Stephen also mentioned to you the wall. While you're here, take a good look at it. And I know it took a ton of work for them to get it here. Just getting it scheduled is really no small task. The traveling wall moves about the United States for those people to see it who are unable to go to Washington. It is a replica of the real monument, though. A monument has become one of the most popular in our country's history. A monument to the memory of those who served and died in Vietnam. It displays the names of some 58,200 men and women who died as a result of that war. That number includes 8 women and 16 chaplains, and I think there are 1,072 names on that wall from Minnesota. To me, and to many others, I think the wall is kind of a sacred thing. A fitting remembrance of our fallen friends, sons, husbands, daughters, proud Americans who answered the country's call and gave their all. You might go to the wall and just touch one of those names inscribed there. You might even want to say thank you for that life that some person gave. Just part of the cost of the freedom that we enjoy. I thought today I would tell you a few things about getting shot down and being a prisoner of war, time permitting, and it looks like it's not going to rain right now. I guess if I were to say to you, the best advice is don't get shot down, and if you do, don't get caught. If you do, though, there are a certain number of things you really ought to know instantly. To me, I knew I'd see some of my friends when I got there, and I sure did. The first question that they asked me is, hey, when's the war going to end, and when are we going to go home? Of course, I knew that. And with the American way of looking at things, about the next question they're going to ask you is who won the Super Bowl and the World Series. So if you go to war and going to get shot down, put those things in the back of your vocabulary before you get there. As it turns out, I really thought I was sort of bulletproof. They just hadn't hit me yet. And one more week, as Steve said, my second combat cruise would be over and the old USS Hancock would be headed back to San Diego and home. As it turned out, you can't be too sure, though, and I sure wasn't bulletproof, and I had to eject from my fighter deep in enemy territory. And to kind of say what the younger generation, they kind of coined the term, so the life of a prisoner in Vietnam really sucks. I came to know that. The shoot-down, my shoot-down, I say it was a fairly exciting experience. But first I must tell you, a supersonic fighter is a masterpiece of engineering. You don't really get into a fighter, you kind of put it on like a well-tailored suit. Despite the small cockpit, though, it'll respond to your every command. That is until it takes a number of hits, and too many hits, and the vital systems are damaged. The old Crusader could take a lot of hits, but it also has its limits. I recall a good friend of mine, another fighter pilot, returning to the ship with 60 or more holes in his airplane one day. He'd been doing air-to-ground work, but all of a sudden he noticed bullets coming at him from behind. He looks back and he sees this MiG airplane back there just blazing away. He got back to the ship, though, and he got away. And of course, the intelligence people were really interested in how he evaded this guy. They wanted to know what tactics he used and just exactly how he had done it. Spence said, well, he said, by the time I noticed the guy back there, he was out of bullets, so I just drove straight ahead. I really wasn't quite as lucky as Spence was, though. I think my plane had exceeded its hit limit. But I did always think that it would be a great thing to take a parachute ride. I got shortchanged there, too. My first and only chance. My ejection was very difficult. There were extreme G-forces on the airplane, and I was just barely able to get out, and my parachute ride lasted less than a second. One swing in the parachute, and it was on the ground. It probably wouldn't even compare with a Class E ride at Disneyland, but I did get a parachute ride. And seriously, more seriously, the parachute rigger that packed my parachute is one of the finest guys in the world. I'll always believe that. The next guy that I think is the best guy in the world is Martin Baker. Martin Baker built the ejection seat that saved my life and got me out of that thing when it wouldn't run anymore. I ended up on the ground, and I would like to say that I safely evaded for all of 2 or 3 minutes. I'm sure that some of my Army friends up here in the Marine Corps would have probably done a lot better than that. But anyway, when I left my little office in that cockpit, I wasn't quite ready for that groundwork. Anyway, 21 June 1966 commenced a tour of duty for me that lasted 2,428 days and 18 hours and 35 minutes. The big downside of that doggone tour of duty was I didn't know when the tour end date was going to come up. While I was sitting in that prison, though, in the early years, the interrogators used to set us there and they say, you will be here 5, 10, 20 years or longer. I says, no way. But you know, after 5 years worth, his credibility got a little bit better. Didn't make you feel too good. Thought maybe he knew what he was talking about. Those 7 years, almost 7 years, that I spent as a prisoner of war, though, I established friendships that will endure all tests of time. Do I have any regrets? Possibly. I never saw Batman and Robin on TV, for one thing, and miniskirts completely passed me by. But if the call were put out again, I'd probably do the same thing over, but I think I'd turn the other direction the next time. Actually, the best part of being a prisoner of war is coming home. Despite the divisive nature of the Vietnam War, Operation Homecoming was certainly a heartwarming experience. The reception we received at Clark Air Base in the Philippines and back here in the United States sort of dulled those memories of the place over there, and many things changed though, and it was quite a turbulent time of life for all of us. In some respects, coming home was a bit more, almost as hard as being a prisoner, because so many things had changed. While in that prison, we had well-established guidelines, a code of conduct to keep us on a charted course. Once we got back to civilization, there were a lot of changes, no real guidelines to keep us on course, and it took us a while to understand and accept those changes. At times, even our mental capacity was questioned. I recall about, we'd only been home a few months. I was still attached to the hospital there at San Diego. But a friend of mine, Dale, who was also a fighter pilot and an ex-prisoner of war, we were sitting there one morning reading the San Diego Union newspaper. It had an article about the prisoners that had been repatriated. It said that in general, most of them seemed to be readjusting okay. But the article said there were 3 that were showing sometimes of mental problems. Dale looked at me and I looked at him and he says, well, there's you and I wonder who the other one is. I think that we finally concluded that we were all just a little bit crazy, some just more than others. My wife Karen came back with me this time and she's here today. I keep her around so she can navigate for me. She says my sense of direction is not too good. And she has gone so far as to say that if she'd been flying with me that day, I'd have never got shot down. She says she would have known which way to turn. Unfortunately, my airplane had 1 seat in it. The beauty of it was you're your own boss all the time. But now I'm trying to find a car like that. I'm not sure my wife would like this, but I'd say she's a pretty colorful wife. She's kind of like some of my fighter pilot buddies. Her language is better, though, unless she's really mad at me. And before I close, I would like to talk a little bit more about an experience that Karen engineered for me. About 6 years ago, she came home one day and told me she had arranged a trip for us. She said, I'm going to take you to a place that I've never been before. I thought maybe we were going to the kitchen or something, you know. I can't get her to cook anything, you know. When she said she'd booked us for a cruise to Vietnam, I says, hey, been there, done that. Bet she'd already spent the doggone money, so of course I was going to go. I say I'm frugal, she says I'm cheap, so I didn't want to waste the money. Her idea was, she thought that it would be quite appropriate that I should spend my 8th birthday in Hanoi. I had had 7 birthdays there before, so she was going to clock up number 8. As it turns out, a change of plans put us in Hanoi a day before my birthday it was. But as fate would have it, it was that day that the Vietnamese started tearing down the old Wa Lo prison. Wa Lo was the Vietnamese name for the cage that we lived in. We call it the Hanoi Hilton. We thought that was a more appropriate name. Anyway, while we were there, Karen badgered the tour guide to take us out to that old prison. And nobody can badger like Karen can. We arrived at the old prison the day that demolition started, and there were a lot of press people there covering the event. None from the United States, as I recall, but they had connections. The Vietnamese had placed yellow tape to mark a restricted area, just like OSHA does here in our country, and to keep people out of the work area. Karen climbs over their yellow tape and starts picking up souvenir bricks. She even tried to get into the prison to see what was in there. After all those years of me trying to get out, I couldn't believe she wanted to try to get in. I call her the bricklayer of Hanoi now, but she did collect some bricks. The press took a lot of photos of that, and when they found out that I'd been incarcerated there, they interviewed me, and the picture appeared in newspapers in quite various parts of the world, some each end almost. It was Karen's picture in my story, and it was kind of funny. The ship made the next port of Nha Trang, which is just down the coast from where we'd been, and we went off on a little tour of the town and out in the countryside to see what was going on there. Our sightseeing tour ended and our shopping tour was over. We were back there waiting for the bus to take us back to the little cruise ship we were on. So we decided to do what we always do, have a beer. We walked into a dark little bar there, and we ordered a Tiger beer. I sat there, and when I got night adapted and looked over at the next table, I saw on the table a Frenchman sitting at the table reading a local newspaper. It was all in Vietnamese, and I didn't know what a single word of it was, but there on the front page was my wife's picture in 4x5 size. The Frenchman pointed to her and said, "Hey, looks like her." Anyway, the news article appeared in many newspapers. Maybe some of you saw it. One lady who read it had worn one of the POW bracelets with my name on it. She had received it as a gift from her father when she was 12 years old, and she had never taken it off. Learning from that article in the paper that I had survived and gotten home, she decided she wanted to return that bracelet to me. So she contacted the news media. She wanted to try to get my address. And the Good Morning America people decided it would make a good story. With all the murdering and killing and other things going on, I guess that's the best they could scrape up at the time. But anyway, they invited the lady and I to appear on the show for the return of the bracelet. And it certainly was a very touching experience to meet Miss Deborah Knight, who really kept the faith during the time of our captivity and far beyond. And that little 12-year-old girl is now my 44-year-old pen pal. One of the other questions that I was often asked by the press, and after we returned from that particular trip to Vietnam, was, the one guy always kept saying, "How did you feel, Captain Black?" He kept going on that. I guess I should have figured out how I really felt, but they'd also ask, was it a healing experience? Did it bring closure? I'd just like to say that unlike the thousands of very young soldiers, Marines, who were captured in South Vietnam, the 500 plus of us who lived in the Hanoi Hilton up there were all career aviators, and we'd been in the service considerably longer than most of the younger folks. And actually, while no one really expects to get shot down, we all knew we'd assumed that risk. And in the prison, we lived very strictly by discipline and the chain of commands. It was actually a lousy tour of duty, and it lasted too long, but it happened and then it was over. I do have some scars, probably mental as well as physical, but I really wasn't looking for closure when I went back there, and I didn't expect healing from visiting in that country. But it was, as it turned out, a very interesting trip. One of the best, perhaps, that Karen and I have ever taken. And perhaps the most noteworthy part was the attitude of the Vietnamese people. And it's understandable, probably, when we learned that over 75% of the people living there now are under 25 years of age. They were not even alive during the time I was a prisoner, and they all appeared to really like Americans. And I suppose in that respect, like the wall, it was a healing trip. And I came away with perhaps a little less hostility towards the Vietnamese people. I'd still like to reckon with some of the torture technicians and the guards that they had, but I say sometimes to myself they were probably just doing their job. And now in closing, I have one more thing. I'd like to thank all of you who kept the faith with me, and with all of you out there who kept faith with all of our veterans and prisoners of war, not only in Vietnam, but in all the wars our country has fought. It's always nice to know that somebody's behind you, and you can never forget that if you're locked up in a cage like that. And then I would say the few words that Jerry Denton said when we reached Clark Air Base in the Philippines in February 1973. We are honored to have had the opportunity to serve our country under difficult and trying circumstances. We are profoundly grateful to our Commander-in-Chief and to our nation for this day. God bless America, and thank you all for coming today. Have a great day. It's a show of patriotism like this that makes it somehow seem all worthwhile. Thank you.
Okay, that's pretty tough to follow. But at this time, I'd like to introduce to you another speaker that we have, and he is going to announce 17 names to you of those lost in action from Wabasha and Goodhue County. I'd like to introduce the Wabasha County Veteran Service Officer, Al Holton.
Thank you, Steve. It's nice to see this many people show up for an event like this. It's awesome, really, you know. These names I read off didn't, of course, come out as lucky, but by the grace of God, there's some of us that are able to stand up here and, you know, do this. It's a privilege, of course, to go through these names, and I would be more than glad to meet with any of the families of these names afterwards. I'd like to meet some of you, some I haven't met, but I would definitely like to meet the ones that I read off. So if you please listen. The first name on my list is Richard Arnold Carlson, a Wabasha native. Second individual, Michael Dwayne Klickner, Wabasha. Benjamin Franklin Danielson, Kenyon, Minnesota. Michael Joseph Glenn, Lake City. Robert Lee Graham, Iota. Gordon Marlowe Gunhouse, Kenyon. Charles Lee Hushel, Red Wing. Frederick Henry Hemphill, Red Wing. Lee Charles Kinney, Welch. Michael John Lally, Red Wing. Thomas Edward Rittman, Red Wing. Herman Francis Rubin, Pine Island. Richard John Shell, Minneaska. Stephen James Smith, Wabasha. James Edward Wagner, Elgin. David Wilbert Weir, Elgin. And last, Raymond Charles Wildy, Millville. Thank you so much.
I'd like to add one more name. This young man entered the Marine Corps from Indiana, but he was originally from Frontenac, and his parents lived in Frontenac for a while, and I had the opportunity to meet with him, and I wear his bracelet. Bruce W. Staley, Frontenac. If we could just have a moment of silence to remember these names. Thank you. Now we're going to have a little song for you. Erin Bramer, she's going to sing you a song called I Vow to Thee, My Country, and she will be accompanied by Holly Roberson on the keyboard.
Thank you, Aaron and Holly. Now, we are going to hear from the Lake City Tiger Band, and they are going to play for you the Armed Forces Salute. And when you hear the branch of service that you represent, we ask that you please stand. Thank you, Tiger Band. Now, we are going to have our rifle salute presented by the Lake City VFW Honor Guard, and that will be followed by taps.
Raise it! Arm! Port! Arm! Prepare to fire. Ready! Aim! Fire! Ready! Aim! Fire! Ready! Aim! Fire! Freeze it! Arm!
On behalf of the President, the Armed Forces of the United States, and the grateful nation, I present you this flag, a symbol of our great republic, for which our departed comrade has honorably served. Before closing, when I was preparing for this day, Our Ladies Auxiliary gave me many handouts to look over and see if there was anything I wanted to use. The first handout I read the first paragraph, and that paragraph stuck with me the whole time. I have never forgotten it. I'd like to share this paragraph with you, and it goes as follows. Our nation owes a lasting debt of gratitude to all those selfless and heroic members of our armed forces who have risked their own freedom and safety to defend the lives and liberty of others. But we must remember in a special way those Americans who remain missing and unaccounted for from all our nation's wars and conflicts. Just take a moment and let that sink in, and I hope you can take that back home with you. With that, I'd like to thank all of you for coming. It's been a great weekend. All of those from out of town that have been here all weekend, I hope you enjoyed your stay in Lake City. The weather has cooperated, and I see now the sun is starting to come out again. I know we need rain, but let the skies open up tonight, except for I think the guys taking down this tent don't want to see that. But once again, thank you. Drive safely, no matter far or near. Thank you.
We're just wrapping up our closing ceremony here now at the wall today. It was a beautiful day. We had a great turnout. A lot of people from out of town, Loyalty Days representatives here from the VFW clubs, the 1st District. The weather held out for us. I just want to thank a lot of people that got involved with this thing, with the loyalty days, the planning, everything, the wall, the committees. Everybody did a great job.
Hi, my name is John Anderson. I'm the site manager for the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Fund Traveling Wall. We've been traveling with this now since we started in October of '96. This is our 126th site. Very small towns have large hearts. We've had a great reception here in Lake City. As a matter of fact, every city in Minnesota we've been in so far has been a really good reception. The local VFW did a fine job putting this event on, and we'd like to thank the community for opening their hearts and their town to us. Just been a great time for us. We call this wall the wall that heals, and it heals in a lot of different ways. We have families planning family reunions, like the Glenn family here in Lake City that come out to view their son's name on the wall, and it's kind of like going to a cemetery. Unless you see that name on that gravestone, it doesn't really become real to you. It also heals the war protesters that when the GIs came back from Vietnam, they treated them very badly, trying to blame the soldier instead of the government for the political woes of the country. And now these war protesters are realizing their mistake and trying to right the wrong that happened back when we came back. It's a healing for the Vietnam vet who, for one reason or another, can't get to Washington, D.C. to see the wall there. They come out to the Traveling Vietnam Memorial and think it's not going to affect them very much because it's only a replica. But we see the same emotions here as they do in Washington, D.C. There's people coming to say goodbye or to visit old friends or comrades on the wall. Family members coming to visit family members. It's a very emotional place, and it's a good place to start the healing. A lot of Vietnam vets need to come and view this so they can start their healing process.
Americans watch NBC News than any other news organization in the world.
Next on the KTTC News Center, the fate of Charles Witt-Slaybaugh is in the hands of the jury. We'll get a live update on deliberations from Steele County. Then, have cable trouble today? We'll tell you why. And a way for local vets to heal decades-old wounds. The KTTC News Center 6 o'clock report starts now.
KTTC TV, turn to the leader. Now from KTTC's News Center, the 6 o'clock report with Jeff Ulrich and Betsy Singer, Mike Hammernick weather, and sports with Pat Lund.
What will happen to this Owatonna man?
ARP's Independent Living Week, which runs through this Sunday. Well, still ahead, the T-Wolf season is over. We'll get player reaction.
Then, a new record for donations during Minnesota Food Share Month.
First, a 2-year struggle brings victory for local veterans. That story is next on the KTTC News Center 6 o'clock report.
News Center, the 6 o'clock report with Jeff Ulrich, Betsy Singer, Mike Hammernick, and Pat Lund.
Well, it's been nearly 25 years since the end of the Vietnam War, a conflict that took the lives of more than 58,000 Americans.
Many in southeastern Minnesota have been unable to visit the Vietnam War Memorial in Washington to honor their fallen heroes. Now, the Wall That Heals is doing just that in Lake City, Minnesota. News Center's Jason Wenish has more.
Vietnam veteran John Marshall remembers a time when being a soldier was not popular. Back then, he felt two kinds of emotions: the hatred directed at troops from war protesters and the horror of watching servicemen die in battle.
It was a crude and harsh environment, and if you allowed yourself to respond to it like a civilized person would, you'd lose control of yourself. You learn to control all of your emotions.
But some of those emotions are beginning to resurface. The Traveling Vietnam War Memorial was set up by Lake City Veterans Wednesday. For many, it's the first time they've been able to read the names of friends who lost their lives in battle.
See all the names and just realize what it was. I know it's over 30 years for some guys, but some guys it's still pretty fresh in their memory.
Though this memorial is a fraction of the size of the Washington version, its purpose is the same, bringing veterans and non-veterans together, honoring loved ones who have died. The wall that heals.
The war affected everybody, whether they know it or not. From the Vietnam veteran in the field in combat to the young girl sitting in front of a TV set, watching the war every night with dinner.
Every single one of those names could have done what I did. They could have gone home, they could have got married, they could have had families, they could have had whole lives. Not a single one of them. It is such a tragedy.
The war is something Vietnam veterans will never forget. They hope this wall will have the same effect on visitors as they honor the thousands who fought for freedom. In Lake City, Jason Wenish, KTTC News Center.
The Traveling Vietnam Memorial will be in Lake City until Monday. Coming up after sports, find out why the local food bank wants to say thanks to many of you.